Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Crazy Kitsune Gaming with another episode of Stellaris, aka Journey of the Frog Hand Republic, because boy, that is exactly how we look right now. So, we're pretty much gonna continue doing the usual at this point. We're about to grab the Isius system, which is gonna lead us to some very resource-rich systems further down the line. And we've now built ourselves another colony ship, which is going to go ahead and colonize Aniria. Yep, there it goes. Have fun, guys. Anyway,
Construction complete.
now we've grabbed the Isius system, so now you can go ahead and build all the mining stations there. And our economy is looking pretty good, however there is a way to make it a bit better. Because we did last episode have an election, and we elected probably the best guy we could have gone for other than who we already had. Because now we have Space Miner. So now our mining stations are cheaper to make, which is probably why it only cost us 150 minerals to build all of these mining stations. And also, it's meant that our economy in general is doing really good right now, because, like, 40 of our minerals are coming from stations. So, yeah, that's almost not quite as many as we're getting from jobs, but pretty dang good. And our food is doing pretty good. I actually think it's been at like around plus 40 pretty much since the start of the playthrough. Mostly because we don't have the population to eat all of the food. Come on, guys. Shag faster. I see you there in the bedroom. You're not doing it quick enough. Oh, what's that? I should give you some privacy? You're probably right. But we do have some ways we can improve our economy now with some of the new edicts that we've gotten. Now, have I talked about policies yet? I'm not sure we have, actually. And once we start meeting other nations, these are going to be really important. So yeah, let's talk about them. So the first policy that you can actually change here is the diplomatic stance. Now, no matter what kind of nation you're playing, you're always going to start as expansionist. And when you're starting out, this is kind of the best one you can go for. It reduces your outpost build cost by 10%. Sadly, that doesn't include the influence. Expansionist would probably be absolutely the best stance in the beginning if it did reduce influence cost. But sadly, all it does is reduce the alloy cost. It also increases your colony development speed by 15%, which has been very helpful so far. It does sadly increase border friction by 100%. So border friction is a mechanic where once you start meeting other nations, as you get bigger and bigger borders with them, then they'll like you less and less, and this stance actually increases that by 100%. So that is something to watch out for. Now, there is also isolationist. So essentially what this does is, if you send an envoy to improve relations with a nation that you've actually met that can be talked to, so, you know, not mining drones and space whales like we've kept running into, then this stance will make it so that costs you a quarter of an influence per month, which already makes this pretty horrible, since there's a way to lose influence. It does, however, give you monthly unity of 10%, which is nice, but it also takes away 25% of your diplomatic weight, which isn't useful right now, but later on, it's a very crucial resource to get. It also increases diplomatic influence cost. Again, not really that bad now, but later on, kind of terrible. It also increases your governing ethics attraction by 25%, which is nice, but actually not that helpful. And also increases your border friction by 200%, meaning that if you have a very big border with another nation, like 5 or 6 systems, they're definitely going to hate you. Now, there is also a cooperative. This is probably the best stance to have in the game. So, The only real negatives of this are sending an envoy to harm relations cost a quarter of an influence point per month. That's not really that big of a deal most of the time. It also increases your operations cost and upkeep. Now, what this means is, as you meet other nations, you do have the ability to spy on them, and this will increase the cost of doing that, including the influence cost, because the same update that gave us our terrible empire-size system also ruined the spying system, so now it costs influence to do. Honestly, what a wonderful update. You know, making it cost influence to spy on people, and, you know, giving us an empire-size system that punishes us for being good at the game. Yeah, that was just a great update, Paradox. That was just great. We love it. Absolutely. Now then, there's also Belligerent. Probably the third best that there is. So this means that sending an envoy to improve relations costs a quarter of an influence per month. And again, that is absolutely terrible. However, it reduces war exhaustion gain by 10%, which is basically a mechanic where as the war goes on later and longer and longer, then your people will be less and less willing to continue the war, and essentially means that the other nation can push you to never actually surrender, but can eventually push you to just ending the war, instead of letting you infinitely go on until you just win outright. It also gives you plus 10% naval capacity, so that means that you'll be able to field more and more ships, which is, yeah, incredibly useful. It also gives you negative 10% claim influence cost, because yes, as you meet other nations, then you're probably gonna get into a point where they've taken systems that were absolutely yours, because the AI is outrageous in the systems that they will grab from you. So yeah, you're definitely gonna have to claim something from somebody at some point. So this is a very good one to go for. Now, there are 3 others that are locked from us, and that is one of them is the mercantile one. Now, to have it, you need to have the Merchant Guild Civic. I also think if you have the DLC to let you be a megacorp, then that is another way to get mercantile. And also, there is a tradition that lets you unlock it as well, and that is the main way to get it, since Merchant Guilds does come from a DLC, I believe. You also need to not be an Inwards Perfectionist, or a Fanatic Purifier, Determined Exterminator, or Devouring Swarm. We're none of those, so if we could just get Mercantile done, we would have access to it. So it means that using the Closed Borders Diplomatic Action against non-rivals will cost you a quarter of an influence per month. Now, closing your borders is a very powerful thing to do, especially when expanding, and if you actually make an empire your rival, it means that they're likely to declare war on you at some point, thereby diverting attention from expanding. So once you've grabbed all the systems that you need, then this one is fine, but until then it can be a bit of an issue. It increases your diplomatic weight from economy by 25%, of again, very good. It also gives you 10% more trade value, which is helpful, and plus 5 trade protection, because you can get pirates later on, and this trade protection makes them a little less likely to appear. And now we have either the best or second best diplomatic stance. It's either supremacist or cooperative. One of those two is the best. So this diplomatic stance, first things first, will harm relations with all other nations that are in the supremacist diplomatic stance. That's fine, because a nation that's going to go for this stance is usually not going to be one you're going to be friends with. The reason why you want to go into this stance is usually to fight off other supremacist empires that want to absolutely ruin everything. So that's not really... that's like having Russia be angry at you. That's a good thing. It's a good thing for bad people to be angry at you. So, really, that's a non-issue. And even better, restrictions on rival actions are relaxed both for and against you. So, see, in order to make a nation your rival, then they need to be within a certain power level of you. If they are way stronger than you, you can't make each other rivals, and if you are way stronger than them, again, neither of you can make each other rivals. So, this is very, very good, as it sort of relaxes that area that you're allowed to make them a rival, which is incredibly good. Now, it does mean sending an envoy to improve relations costs 1/4 of an influence per month, but that's sort of a false negative because this is also going to take away some of your biggest influence sinks, because much like Belligerent, it reduces your claim influence cost by 10%. This also will decrease your war exhaustion gain by 20%, which again will let you fight longer and harder wars, and you can also get plus 20% naval capacity. It has a lot of the same restrictions that the Mercantile has. However, in order to actually unlock it, you'll need to complete the Supremacy traditions, which we will be doing pretty soon. There's one other tradition I want to get done first, but yeah, that should be done pretty soon, especially with us colonizing more and more planets, and our Unity generation going higher and higher. There is one other diplomatic stance, and that is Purification. To get it, you need the Fanatic Purifier Civic, which, yeah, we don't have, and we are in no way eligible to get it. But that's fine, because a Fanatic Purifier is kinda something you need to get rid of really fast. And Purification is easily the worst diplomatic stance to have in the entire game. It literally gives you no benefits. Now then, that is the diplomatic stances covered. There is also war philosophy. So this basically determines what kind of wars you can have. You always want to be on unrestricted wars, and unless you are some form of pacifist, then you should have it. And this is one of the main reasons why you do not want to play a pacifist in any way. Because not having the unrestricted wars massively restricts you in what you can do. So then, there is also Liberation Wars. Now, this does have some big issues. Claiming other systems is only allowed during defensive wars or against Gestalt consciousness empires. And specifically, I think it's only allowed against ones that are particularly nasty. Now, this does have one major benefit. It unlocks the ideology casus belli on all nations that have different ethics. So essentially what this lets you do is it lets you go to war with a nation and force them into your ethics, which is a very nice war type, and it's a way that you can potentially get rid of enemies without actually destroying them and taking all of their land for yourself. And now we have defensive wars, the worst war philosophy that you can possibly have. Claiming of systems is only allowed during defensive wars. There is no ideology casus belli. There is no way to claim systems unless they attack you first. Defensive wars is absolutely dreadful. There are also subjugation wars that you can do if you're stronger than a nation. Defensive wars takes that away from you too. So it means that even if you're a pacifist, then your last way of taking territory by subjugating another nation is gone. You never want to be on defensive wars at any time whatsoever. It is the worst war philosophy you can possibly have. Most of the time, you just want to leave it on unrestricted and call it a day. Now, as you find other nations out there, you will have the option to go to war with them to subjugate them. That is, if you can get stronger than them. So, there are 3 types of vassalage that you can do, and since we're Fanatic Xenophile, we start on Benevolent. So it means that we cannot integrate them, thereby integrating a nation means that you basically eat all of their territory and they become part of your nation without you actually claiming it. So it is a way that you can play as a regular pacifist and still conquer nations. It also means that the nation that you beat in the war to grab them will have independent diplomacy. This is perfectly fine, really. Now, there is one problem, and benevolent vassalage will leave them with expansion permitted. Now, the good thing is, after you beat them in the war, you can change the deal later, but you want to restrict them from expanding ever as soon as possible. Now, as for the Join Overlord Wars and Join Subject Wars, this will basically mean that they both start on defensive, so if the vassal is ever having a war declared on them, the war is also declared on you, and vice versa. It also means that you get a holding that you can put on the vassal, which is nice. Holdings are basically little buildings that you can put on some of your vassal's planets, so this will let you have one of those. Now, if you go with balanced vassalage, then the deal is a bit better. Your integration is still prohibited, which most of the time is going to be fine, again, unless you're pacifist. It sadly restricts their voting, although that can sometimes be a good thing, because basically there will be a sort of space UN that forms at some point once enough nations have met each other. So this means that they won't be able to vote in it. This can be good, but most of the time it's just sorta meh. And it is a bit better in the regard of expansion. It is regulated, basically meaning that anytime they expand, they need to give you some influence. This is still completely unacceptable. You want to take away everyone's ability to expand as soon as possible. Now, the Join Overlord Wars and Join Subject Wars is still the same, and the subject's holding limit. There is also oppressive vassalage, which is almost decent-ish. The integration is now permitted, which again is great for if you're playing a pacifist nation, because now you can just instantly start absorbing them into your nation. Now, they sadly have limited diplomacy, but this is both a good, usually good, although sometimes bad thing. What limited diplomacy does is essentially it will turn some of their diplomatic weight into yours and force them to vote with you. So that is pretty good, although not necessary. What is absolutely necessary, though, is the expansion prohibited. Finally. So, oppressive vassalage is probably the best one you can go for. We're not going to do it yet, because I plan to just conquer nations outright if I have to go to war with them, but stopping them from expanding is perhaps the best thing you can do. That means that they can't be stealing your rightful territory, and they won't expand into anything that can potentially get them killed, because the AI is very, very good at getting themselves killed in some ways that you just couldn't imagine. Now, there is a pretty bad part of this deal, and means that they will join all of your wars, but you only need to be involved in their defensive wars. Sadly, as the deals get better for you, it tends to make them less happy, and usually having a little vassal state join you in your wars isn't going to be that great, so that is the one bad part of the deal. And the subject holdings limit is still 1. We're going to leave it on benevolent until we see need to change it. Now then, orbital bombardment stance. This definitely needs to be changed, so there are 2 types of bombardment. And that is selective. So it means that you can use the selective orbital bombardment stance, which is the superior option here. So it means that it allows only the bombardment of identified military targets while keeping civilian casualties to a minimum. So essentially, if you go with selective bombardment, yes, your damage to any defense armies that are on the planet will be lower. That can be a bit of a problem, but not that big of an issue, because really you should just be making your own assault armies and conquering their planets normally. So, the good things with selective bombardment is that when you are bombarding the planet, you won't be able to accidentally kill the last 22 populations on the planet. So it means that if you're bombing the capital, you can still kill them, however very slowly. And it means that if you go for something like a colony, then no, they probably won't be able to grow many new populations, but you can't kill what's already there. Because if you find a colony, it's probably under 22 populations. Now then, let's talk about why Indiscriminate is the worst of the options. It is probably the worst bombardment stance you can have. It allows the full use of all orbital weaponry with no regards to life on the surface. So it means that you will deal damage to the armies faster, which is kind of helpful, but again, especially if your species has the strong or very strong traits, it's probably easier to just conquer the planets that way. And the bad parts of it is it means that it can kill all the way down to 11 populations. So it means that you have a much smaller window on colonies of being able to bombard them without destroying any populations. And you will kill those populations way quicker. So don't bombard an enemy's capital with this because it will absolutely rip it apart, thereby destroying any populations that you could have gained from being at war with them. It's a good bombardment stance to use on a planet that you're not going to be capturing in that war right then, but other than that, this is pretty useless. So we're going to set it to selective so that we can actually have things left to conquer. So then, resettlement. So essentially, you can actually move your populations if you have this allowed. Now the thing is, moving around a population costs a bit of unity and a lot of energy credits, and usually you're not gonna need to do it. So sometimes you can run into factions that don't like it if you have this allowed, and if they ever pop up, then yeah, we're basically gonna prohibit it immediately. But for now, we're gonna leave the options on the table. There is also the first contact protocols, which we have already talked about. We're going to leave it on proactive, since it's the best. There is also initial border status. So this one is pretty simple. You can have it as either open, meaning that another nation's ships will be able to move through and exit as they wish. You really need to start this off on closed. That way you can expand easier, trap systems within your borders without actually spending the influence to grab them, and overall, it just means that things will be a lot easier. You can change it back to open once you've actually grabbed all the systems that you want, but we're going to start this off on closed. Now keep in mind, having closed borders with a nation does mean that they will basically instantly close their borders to you, and you can always close and open borders with each specific nation as you see fit. So for now, we are actually going to leave it on open, because we can actually just close it off as we find a nation that we don't want coming in or out. Now, the economic policy is also another important one to look at, and this essentially lets you change how much resources are being produced from your industrial districts. So if you leave it on a mixed economy, there will be no bonuses or penalties to resource production. And it will usually leave it on mixed unless, of course, you play as an authoritarian nation, which will immediately make it militarized. Just another reason why authoritarian is a pretty bad ethic. because a militarized economy will reduce the number of consumer goods you're making, but it does increase the number of alloys you're making. Now here's the thing, alloys can only be used for immediate military gain in making more ships and defense platforms. So if you're in the middle of a war, or you have a nasty crisis going on, or you see that you're going to have to conquer a nation pretty soon and want to build up the alloys to be able to do that, this is okay, but really the best one you can go for is a civilian economy. Essentially, this will nerf your alloys production by 25%, which is unpleasant, but not that big of an issue, because it, in return, it means that you're producing 25% more consumer goods. And generally, consumer goods are far more helpful, because you can use consumer goods for research, you can use them for Unity production, you need some of them to just upkeep your population. So, yeah. I'm going to leave it as mixed for now, but later on, it's quite possible we'll switch it to a civilian economy, so that we can increase that consumer goods production. Now then, trade policy. So essentially, the mercantile tradition that we've talked about a bit earlier will give you a few other trade policies. It will start off on wealth creation, which means each point of trade value you collect will give you a energy credit. Now later on you can change it so they give you a little bit of energy and either some consumer goods or Unity. So not helpful right now, but it's something to keep in mind for later. There's also robotic workers. So essentially you can either have them allowed or outlawed. You always want to leave them allowed if possible, because having robots is a very good thing for your nation, and if you ever run into the technology to get robots, you should probably start building them. So we're going to leave this as allowed. Now then, there's also your research, your debris policy. Now, you can either research or scavenge debris. So as you destroy enemy ships, like for example the mining drones that we ran into earlier, you can choose to either research or scavenge their debris. You want to keep this on research, as it means that you get a few points of research and learn some of the technologies used in the ship once you've actually done anything with those debris. If you scavenge them, you'll get maybe some alloys, probably a couple of minerals, and that's going to be about it. Maybe late game, you'll get a few of those rare resources. But really, researching debris is best until you've researched all the technologies, then you can feel free to start scavenging them. Now then, refugees. So essentially this means that if there is anything out there that can produce refugees, like for example, some nation has came in, conquered a planet, and then decided they don't want the populations, and either kicks them off or decides to purge them, then you can have a chance to get some refugees. You always want to leave this on refugees welcome. That means that refugees can come from absolutely anywhere, and immediately start benefiting your economy with more juicy populations. If you set it to citizen species only, that means that you will only be able to grab refugees from species with full citizenship. Now that's okay, you can go out and look at the species tab and just make everyone a citizen, and that means it will essentially be the same as refugees welcome, but it's a little bit problematic, because then if there's any new species discovered that you may not know about, then you'll have to go and make them a citizen too. So it's really a bit of a problem. Now then, there is the worst one you can go with, and that is no refugees. Meaning that you will never get any refugees ever. Really, the only reason you would ever be using this is because if you're some degree of xenophobe. Since if you're a xenophobe, refugees welcome can become locked. So really, you always want either citizen species or refugees welcome. Having no refugees is basically denying yourself economic growth. There's basically no reason to do it. Now then, there's also population controls. You always want to leave these as prohibited. Basically, if you allow them, then you can essentially force the species to not grow, or only select a specific species to grow. And really, that's not very helpful whatsoever. A population is a population. You never actually want to lock yourself out of getting more population. Now, there's also your slavery policy. Now, in order to even have it allowed, you need to be either a xenophobe or authoritarian. Because we're xenophile, we basically can't do it whatsoever. Now then, technically having enslaved populations can be a bit helpful if you do it right, but there are definitely some ethical questions about it. And there is another change that comes with having it prohibited, and that is the slave market cost is increased by 100%. Because eventually, once you start meeting other species, there will be a slave market unlocked if you have the, I think it is the Mega Corporations DLC. So, we won't be able to buy any slaves, but even if you have it prohibited, you can buy slaves, and then they will immediately become free, because even if you have it prohibited, then it will still let you buy the slave, and then they just immediately become a citizen. So, you're essentially buying them into freedom. So, yeah. It's probably never going to be much of an issue if you have this on or off, unless you're playing as an authoritarian or xenophobe who can actually make use of it. So then, there is also Purge. So essentially, this gives you more Purge options. Now, because we are a xenophile, we can't do it outright. But if you have it on displacement only, then it means that you are allowed to kick populations off of the planets, but not do anything else with them. And if you have it allowed, then you can go ahead and purge populations in any manner you want. You can outright kill them, you can work them to literal death, or honestly anything else you want. Sometimes you can even eat them. Now, there are so many ethical issues with that, but we're not really going to be able to worry about it since we're xenophiles, so yeah. So that is all the policies. And I've spent half an hour talking about policies. Wow. This could be a boring episode, maybe. So what we really came here to do is look at our edicts. Now then, you do immediately start off with, no matter what ethics you have, or whatever bonuses you have, you will start off with the Fortify the Border edict. And we might actually turn it on. So essentially, this has a upkeep of 18 influence. Now, we have a Edict Fund of 25. So essentially what Edict Fund does is it will absorb some of the unity cost of turning on an edict. So essentially, there's basically no issue turning this on. There might be some issues a little bit later as we unlock more edicts, but for now, this is fine. So essentially, our starbase upgrade speed will increase by 50%, and we'll get 2 more starbase capacity, which is great because I'm really aching for starbase capacity right now. Well, not really aching for it, but I would prefer to have some of it. Now then, there's also the education campaign. So this increases your leader experience gain by 25%. Generally, this isn't worth it unless you're just overflowing in money. This is basically a useless one. However, the recycling campaign, now we're on to something. So, for the 27 energy credits, and as we get bigger, this cost will increase, but also as we grow more populations, our savings from this will increase. It's going to decrease our population consumer goods upkeep by 10%. Since consumer goods are generally more valuable than energy credits, yeah, we're going to turn this on. Now, our Edict Fund does not affect anything that cost energy credits, so we're going to be eating that full 27.30 energy credit cost. Still though, I'd rather have this on than not. So, it's gonna be staying on for pretty much the entire game, unless our economy starts getting really bad. And even then, turning this off would then increase consumer goods upkeep, so yeah, this is gonna be just fine how it is. Now then, yep, you're already working on that. We have a colony ship moving, and we do have a free science ship we can start using, so let's get to it. Another eager leader. That's great, because, yeah, the Unity cost is getting a little ridiculous now, so join the crew. Where do I actually want to send you, though? Oh, I was so excited to have an eager leader, and now I don't know what to do with him. Start surveying down here, please. There we go. That seems like a reasonable decision to me. Alright then, so how's your building going? Pretty good. Sadly, I don't think there's any way to increase their mining station build speed. Ooh! Mushroom picking. A routine ecological study of our colony on Sparking Light has stumbled upon a strange fungal life form. The science team reports that the surface of the mycelium is shimmering and colorful. But what is most intriguing to them was the fact that the separate clusters were seemingly communicating with one another whenever something occurred within a wide radius. Furthermore, the biology of the organism appears to be clearly alien to the ecosystem of the colony. Puzzled, the local science team has requested specialized support as we might be dealing with a sapient species. Okay then. So, I do love influence, and 1,000 food is something, I guess. But long term, what we want to do here is take a closer look, because this can give us access to both more society research and also tell us about an interesting system that can basically, if we go through and learn about the system, then we'll be able to see farther with our sensors and to know more about other nations that are around. So, yeah, that's a fine event. Let's actually build a city district down here, since we're gonna need a research lab now. Ooh, also, monoliths in the Lyral system. Impressive structures litter Lyral 6's surface, practically begging for some archaeological work. Okay then. Get to it. Lyral, where's... oh, that's this system down here. Yeah, not super excited about what's down here. I mean, an ocean world is okay, I guess. Wormholes can be a bit of a problem because... ooh. Alright then, the spores have ears. We have encountered concerning reports coming from Sparking Light. Upon further examination, it seems that the alien fungus we found is emitting a signal towards a location in the galaxy that we were unable to pinpoint so far. Telemetry and security analysis indicate that it is completely possible for the mycelium to be some kind of advanced spying organism. However, it is worth noting that the organism is old. There is a fair chance that whomever engineered these spying mushrooms is not around anymore. But if they are, it might be best not to poke the sleeping predator. But we need to know more. We need to get more society research. Anyway, as I was saying, this wormhole is amazing! Okay, it appears the asteroid that and the surrounding debris originate from a former planet. Deep within the center of the asteroid, we can find traces of extremely valuable alloys. There are also hints of bacterial life that has now died in the vacuum of space. This shows us that the celestial body once bore the promise of life. Okay then. So, 3 alloys to whichever asteroid that's at. So which asteroid is it? A Julfit? Oh, well, this is an amazing system now. But as I was saying, this wormhole can be a bit of an issue, because we can research the technology to go through it, and it also means any nation that does the same can use it to come back to us. So it means that... I'll get to this in a second. It means that any nation that wants to attack us has a new route of attack once we grab that wormhole. Alright then. No one listens. Careful analysis of the mycelium and the signals showed that it was likely part of a network of similar organisms, possibly spanning across the galaxy as a whole, and maybe beyond. While we do not know much, we discovered that as part of the network, this mycelium was also receiving signals from other places. Considering several factors, including the volume of the data transferred, we do not think that the network is still in use. The fact that it is still partially active indicates that it is probably just dormant and not destroyed. Okay then. So now we'll get more society research from jobs on this planet. And I think eventually we will discover that there is the special system that we can find that is connected to that mycelium spy network. Alright then, you can go survey that.
Research complete.
Ooh, research complete. Genome mapping. Okay then. Oh, hey look. Plus 20 Edict Fund. I mean, we were just talking about plus 20 Edict Fund. Well, Edict Fund in general, not plus 20 in particular. But by researching this, it will lead us to a covert operations path. It will lead us to further advancements in espionage and covert activities. Okay then. Well, considering it's the only one that actually helps us, then yeah, let's do it. Oop, that colony ship is moving to an area. Alright then. Oh, and our consumer goods are looking a bit better. Uh-oh, space whales, what are you doing? Oh dear. Okay, gas giant ship discovered. So, active scans of Tozized 6 have picked up what appears to be a large ship deep inside the atmosphere of the gas giant. Judging by the nearby debris, there have been several failed attempts to salvage this derelict in the past. Any ship strong enough to withstand such crushing gravity must be a magnificent prize. And Science Officer Petals of Burgundy has proposed a salvage project of our own. Alright, let's bring it up, whatever it is.
Situation log updated.
So now we can possibly get a ship from here. But speaking of ships, what are the space whales doing? Oh dear, Edict Monolithic. So Lyral 6 is uninhabited, and indeed uninhabitable, but not unvisited. Its surface is littered with tall word, carved from some mineral not native to the planet, evidently placed here by some artistically inclined spacefaring race. The monolith's flowing lines deftly chart a history so fantastical, it must surely be fictional. Surely. Yay, more engineering research. Now, you need to get back to surveying, and I think we're gonna have a fight between space whales and mining drones. Oh no! Don't do it, you'll get crushed! Oh, they're probably dead. What's not dead, though, is our factions. A new faction has recently been gaining traction in the internal political landscape of the Free Fenzo Republic. Led by Admiral Zenko, they call themselves the Alien Freedom Observatory. Their members have been pushing hard for friendly relations with alien species. We'll get there when we find them. A disgruntled faction would be a source of trouble, but one that approves of the government's actions could prove useful. And we have another one. So this other one is led by Stalk of Brown, and they call themselves the Silver Guard. Their members have been pushing hard for us to assert our military dominance over the rest of the galaxy. Okay then. So, now we get to factions. So, essentially factions are a system where your populations will actually all follow certain ethics. So, let's say if we go to our homeworld here, and we look at, say, our politicians, then we can see one of them is following a militarist ethics, and another one of them is also following militarist ethics. And if we look at maybe some of our researchers, yes, they're members of the Alien Observatory faction because they're following xenophile ethics. So, essentially what this is, it's a system where populations that follow the ethics will want certain things done. In particular, the Alien Observatory doesn't want us to purge anybody, otherwise that would make them unhappy, But since we are not, then they don't really care. Now, this is another case where they don't care, but they would be happy if we did do it, and that is New Contact. So they want us to find another alien nation, and that will make them happy for at least a little while. They also want a benevolent subjugation policy, so really glad I didn't change it, and also proactive first contact protocols. So essentially, your factions will give you a certain amount of unity for how happy the faction is, and how many populations are actually inside of the faction. And currently, they're at 75% approval, so that means they're getting plus 5% happiness. So we really want factions to follow, we want citizens to be part of this faction, so we're going to go ahead and promote it, which will increase the Xenophile ethics attraction by 100%. Now then, we also have another faction here, and that is the Silver Guard. Unfortunately, they're not very happy whatsoever, and it's going to be pretty hard to make them happy. See, what they want is a local rivalry, so they want us to position ourselves as the rival of at least one empire. Sadly, since we don't have any other nations around, we can't even make a rival. They also want a imperial hegemony, so they want us to install ourselves as the overlord of one or more foreign powers. This is going to be a big problem since we don't actually have anyone to vassalize, nor are we really going to vassalize anybody. If we don't like them, we're probably just going to conquer them. They also dislike our benevolent subjugation policy, but see, that's making the Xenophiles happy, so there's not much I can do there. Sometimes the factions will change depending on other ethics that you have. Sometimes the militarist faction, if you go down the xenophobe route, is way easier to please. And sometimes your pacifist faction, if you go down other ethics, will also be a little bit different. And sadly, there is no specific xenophile version of the militarist faction. So we're probably just going to leave them as they are. We're not going to suppress them, as suppressing them will reduce their faction approval by 25%. And they're already getting negative 10% happiness. So, yeah. We're just going to leave them and promote the Xenophiles. I don't know why we have more militarists. Because sadly, militarists are very hard to ever make happy. Not as difficult as pacifists, but they're still pretty bad. So we want as many people becoming Xenophile as possible, because as we discover more mechanics of the game, and run into other nations, they will become even easier to make happy. Now then, I am very concerned for these space whales. Just skirt around the drones.
Construction complete.
Okay, so the space whales are fine. That does give you a sense of just how close you can get before they attack. Now, we have completed some construction. Alright then, so Isius is basically completely ours now. Now, what am I gonna want to grab next once we get more influence? Honestly, right now, I just want the resources. We don't see any other nations yet, so... honestly, yeah, just go ahead and grab the resources. We're probably gonna make Gagawa a choke point, or something like that. I'm not too sure. But I know I want that system so I can grab these two. Because that's gonna be such a nice little boost for our economy. Oh, also, Jewel Fit apparently has finished surveying? No. They must have did a special project and then just decided to derp out and stop. Oh! Okay, we can now grab another tradition. So then, supremacy is going to be really nice because that can help us with our military endeavors. But what I'm actually going to go for is prosperity. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to make the economy a lot easier to run. I mean, just adopting it will increase our mining station output by 20%. That's a pretty big buff. It also has nice finisher effects of more resources from jobs and stability, along with the Ascension perk being unlocked. And yeah, it'll make it cheaper and faster to build buildings, it'll increase our job output and give us more clerk jobs and housing. Yeah, this is what we're going to go next, and then we'll go into Supremacy. But until then, Prosperity it is. Alright then.
System survey complete.
Another system has been surveyed. Which one? The Suland system. I don't even... Oh, it's up here. Okay. Survey that then. Well, there's a
Research
construction ship.
complete.
He's ready to take the system, you know, once we have enough influence. Okay, nanomechanics. Yep, we're grabbing that instantly. More engineering research from researchers. Absolutely. Alright, how are the plants doing? Kitsua could have another building, perhaps? Yeah, we can actually build them their ranger lodge that they need. Yeah, I should probably get that done then. I see no reason to not be grabbing the free Unity sitting here. Alright, so now we're doing one of the minor jobs, which is good. Oh, I'm so glad I deprioritized those colonist jobs. I should probably do that for the other colony. Right after I see about this encounter in Scarome. We've made first contact with mysterious aliens in the Scarome system. So we've codenamed them the Upsilion's aliens. Alright then, so another first contact event. What are they though? Oh, I see. Oh, how I see. So, again, this isn't actually a nation, I don't think. However, this is a sort of, I'm pretty sure this is a bandit group of some kind. So essentially, if you have some of the DLCs, then you can run into these sort of marauder clans. So we're actually not going to do first contact with them, as soon as you do it, then they can start demanding resources from you and deciding to raid you. So, yeah, dismiss. We're just, not gonna deal with that right now. Now, they could maybe not be the Marauders. They might be something else, but the fact that this station is pretty much what the Marauder stations look like, I mean, I guess the color of the lights is a bit different, but they're definitely not a friendly station, considering, yeah, they're showing in red. Our ship is immediately trying to head out. Yeah, let's not test things, shall we? So, I guess survey this system instead. Problem is, it probably has those Marauders in it as well, since they usually inhabit 3 systems. I guess if nothing else, then we'll actually see that it's them.
Special project complete.
Okay. So, in a masterful display of engineering, the team under Science Officer Petals of Burgundy has managed to gently raise the derelict ship on Tozized 6 to the gas giant's upper atmosphere. Despite its age, the ancient cruiser is in remarkably good condition, and we have restored power to its systems. No trace of the original crew remains, but we have brought over our own and commissioned the ship into the fleet. Perfect. That also means Petals of Burgundy gets 200 experience. So then, wow, yeah. So, Cruiser Flourishing Corellia. Interesting. So then, let's actually look at what you have. So, the FFR Salvage, the Derelict class. So yeah, this is starting off with a Tier 2 hyperdrive, so its hyperjump charge time is a bit quicker. It also has an advanced line-style combat computer, so it follows line tactics, so it will hold to medium range and hold formation. It has a better chance to hit and more fire rate. It has plasma thrusters, so it's going to be way faster and dodge a lot more shots, despite being a bit bigger of a ship. It has subspace sensors. Oh, that's cool. We could actually use this thing to scout around just a little bit. It also has a antimatter reactor, which is incredible. It also has some medium plasma accelerator, so far less damage to shields. That's honestly fine since we haven't ran into any ships with shields, but it does way more damage to armor and hull. So it has 2 of these. It also has 2 large X-ray lasers. So less damage to shields, but also a bit more damage to armor. So the accelerators have a range of 60. They have a range of 80. It also shows more average damage. And a bit higher accuracy. Okay. So yeah, this is a nice ship to have. It also has these very good utilities. So level 4 shields. So lots of shield hit points, lots of shield regen, Durasteel armor, which is a very decent level of armor. Sadly, you can't customize or build out ships like this, so we can't use these last 2 armor slots or these 2 component slots. But for now, I think I can use you to scout out systems because your sensors are higher level than ours. Now, it does mean that if I send you into a nebula, you'll probably just get killed since combat ships won't retreat as quickly as science ships will. But we'll send you over here to Othriga and see how you can help us out. Now, we could assign an admiral to it, but oh wow, that's a decently paced ship. But we're not actually going to use this to fight anything yet. We're mostly going to just take advantage of its better sensor range and sort of try to use it to scout out the area. That's the plan anyway. Okay, so Chargamore is safe. Okay. So I'm not 100% on who these guys are, because usually the Marauders have a whole lot of fleets in each of their systems, usually pretty big ones. These guys just don't for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. Oh, mummified pilot. The mummified remains of a single individual belonging to a previously unknown mammalian species have been found drifting in high orbit over Walgun 2. This being is dressed in what appears to be a flight suit, complete with a helmet, and maybe a fighter pilot that ejected in some ancient battle, only to be forgotten and left behind. Our study of the corpse has provided some interesting data. Alright then, so lots more society research for us. Like the sound of that. We're now also colonizing Grain of Truth.
System survey complete.
Oh, and we've completed a system survey. Very good, so Lyral. I mean, it has alloys and minerals and energy, you can't really argue with that. Now you go and survey that system.
Anomaly found.
And we've found an anomaly. Terminal orbit. A small and otherwise insignificant moon orbiting this gas giant appears to be on a trajectory that will soon result in collision with its primary. Okay then. Interesting. Wow, we're still surveying Joule Fett. This is, like I said, it's such a busy system. With quite a few resources in it. Can't really be disappointed with it. Well, there's still 5 stellar bodies here to survey, so there could be even more. You never know. Well, if there are more resources here, that ice asteroid doesn't have them. Alright then, so now let's go to our capital, and I actually want to build a stronghold. That way it will make our homeworld harder to take over, because of the extra defense armies, and we'll get some more navy capacity. Not really a super smart thing to do this early on, since any population working a soldier job isn't giving you resources outright, just the ability to have a bigger navy. But it also does make the planet a little bit harder to take over, so it's kind of worth it, I think. If nothing else, it means because we have such high army damage, then it means that, yeah, this is basically gonna be untakeable for most offensive assault armies. speaking of assault armies, should we build a few? They each cost an energy upkeep, but it'll be nice to... Whoa, okay. New archaeological site discovered. Okay. Now, an archaeological site is very interesting. They're basically sort of like a first contact event, but instead a scientist will do them. Most of them come from some of the DLCs, and this is one of them, so I won't be doing it. But yeah, archaeological sites, nice to have them in your borders. If nothing else, that means that nobody else will be able to grab it. If we do indeed grab this system. Alright then. So you can finally build in Gagawa. If I could stop accidentally clicking on the sun. That's a big sun. Alright then. So you should start helping us see other systems soon.
Research complete.
Research complete. Adaptive bureaucracy learned. Okay then. Genetic healthcare. The colonization of alien worlds has opened up an entirely new field of biomedical research. So this unlocks the Gene Clinic building. So what it does is it gives you medical worker jobs, and medical workers will turn consumer goods into amenities, population growth speed, organic population assembly, and it will increase the planet's habitability. If both those medical worker jobs are being done, then it will give a total of 10% more population growth speed, which is very helpful, 10% more biological assembly speed, which isn't so helpful, 5% more habitability, and 10 amenities. Most people don't really like this building. Personally, I do, because populations are a very valuable resource. Well, not really a resource, but you want a lot of them to really do good at the game. So being able to make more of them is incredibly helpful. Now, yes, you are taking up 2 populations with the medical worker jobs to get them, but if you get it super early on and you put it down on a lot of your colonies, then it's very helpful. It's a little bit less helpful on the home world, and honestly, we're already using all of its... Okay, that's good, you've become better at statecraft. But we're already using all of the homeworld's building slots right now. We will get more later. But yeah, on these colonies, yeah, that's gonna be great. So let's get another city district and a generator district just so you can start becoming somewhat self-sufficient. And, yeah, sparking light. Let's start getting, 3 generators, why don't we? Well, 2 because we don't have the minerals for all 3. Now keep in mind, it can be good to just get an entire construction queue ready as soon as you colonize something, but keep in mind, just having the district around does require some energy upkeep. So sometimes it's better to wait until you are closer to filling out all of the jobs. Now right now, there's only like 3 populations right now and only 4 jobs available. So it's not gonna be that bad, but if there are like 20 jobs available, then yeah, there's really no reason to immediately give them more. Alright, Science Ship in Julfet is done. I thought that system would never end. But hey, it's got quite a few resources in it. Okay then. So yes, I think this ship's sensors are working out just a little bit. We already see De Halliburg despite not having a science ship in there.
Construction complete.
And if I'm right, then oh, yep, we see even more. And... oh, okay. Interesting. So this is a DLC system with this, shielded world. This entire world is encased in some kind of impenetrable energy barrier. It blocks all scans of the surface. So, I'm pretty sure this gives an archaeological site, especially if this is the fleet I think it is, and I do think it is the fleet I think it is. I'm pretty sure once we discover what it is, I don't know why we didn't get a first contact event for them, but once we do, I'm pretty sure this will show as the Armistice Initiative fleet. So, yeah, we'll have to deal with this fleet at some point, but we're not going to do the archaeological site on the planet. Now, there are some shielded worlds that you really don't want to mess with, but if it's got a big fleet over it, don't worry about it. That definitely seems kind of backwards and not the way it should be, but Stellaris is a weird game, and there are lots of things in this game that aren't the way it should be. Alright, you there. Go into Dahlaberg, so we can start seeing more things out there. Okay, so everyone is doing something except for this
Research
construction
complete.
ship. Now... Whoa, we have a lot of science ships not doing things. Okay. You there, get surveying that system. You there can go ahead and survey this system. You will go ahead and... Why do you not survey Morptoized? I don't know why he stopped doing that. And you there in Hizzle, you go and survey this system. There we go. And we've learned nanomechanics. Oh, and robotic workers. So yeah, this is why you don't want to outlaw robots. So then, this will unlock you a building, the robot assembly plants. So this will give you one roboticist job, exactly one. And it will mean that the roboticist will turn alloys into new robot populations. So they will give 2 mechanical population assembly speed, and have a job upkeep of 2 alloys. So it gives us robot workers. Robots are relatively simple machines capable of accepting verbal commands, but possessing no true intelligence of their own. So it means that with the robotic worker technologies, the robot pops will only be able to work worker jobs, but that is still more populations, so yeah, we're gonna research that. It also means we can go down a robotic path that will help us turn our robots into something so much more. So yeah, despite costing 3,000 engineering research, we're good to go for it, especially since our research is on the up and up these days. In fact, anything that isn't building? No, everything is working on something right now. Okay. Well, when we have the chance, we're going to build some more research labs, so that hopefully we can start building robots a little bit faster, so that the robots can do our worker jobs, so that we can do more research jobs, so that we can get stronger, and, you know, maybe kill these freaking mining drones someday. You never know. And dear God, that fleet is going to be a chore to get rid of. Okay, yes, they are what I think they are. Armistice Initiative, Guardian class, not FTL capable, and not enough intel to know their ship design, but these guys are mostly laser based. And they do have some shields. Way more armor and hull than any shields still. And dear God, they have crazy ship modifiers. What's giving you plus 115% ship fire rate? That's crazy. Oh, and you have armor and hull regen. Oh, that's just great. Oh, you're just gonna be buckets of fun to deal with. Although, thankfully for me, we're not gonna be doing it this episode, because this has gone on quite long, and it's mostly been, you know, talking about, you know, our policies and stuff like that, and a little bit about our edicts. Oh wow, yeah, 45 edict fund. That's nice to have. So hopefully next episode will be a little bit more exciting. Although if you have found this one exciting, or you learned something about your policies and edict funds, then consider liking, subscribing, and even sharing the video with your friends. Alright then, so I will see you next time. And our borders are looking weirder and weirder every episode. Yeah, I'm not sure what it looks like now. It kind of looks like... I don't even know. Like maybe a half-eaten piece of bread? I don't know. This is for you to interpret, honestly. Have a good day.